This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 406, recorded on June 13th, 2019. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios. And here, Mike, I think spring has finally arrived. Like, beautiful. Like, the last couple days, this is what you live for in Nebraska, right?
I'm hoping this continues into the weekend because it has been gorgeous, and we're going to a hot air balloon festival this weekend south of here, and hopefully this weather sticks around because you're right. It's been absolutely perfect.
Nice. I sat out on the deck Sunday. I'd called my mom, and she kind of stressed me out. So I grabbed a little bourbon, a little cigar, sat on the deck, got eaten alive. Like I lit all the bug things, and I tried to get everything going. We've just had so much rain. The mosquitoes are pretty fierce. And I didn't stay out there as long as I wanted to. Trust me, finish the cigar, right? So I finished it, but it was pretty brutal. I came in with a few bites, but hoping for it. It'd be nice if it dry out a little bit and get a chance to use some of that deck and patio. And, I bought that the outdoor deck heater to kind of just ambiance. I turned that on low and it makes a really nice fire up there. So hopefully you're enjoying your springtime wherever you're at, or fall if you're down below the equator. Of course, we post a show with world-class show notes each week out at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, you can join us live on the mobile app every week, or if you can't, if you're on the road, best way to join us is on one of those apps. It's absolutely free. Of course, our Patreon subscribers help sponsor that as well. I have a little note about Patreon here. I've got a question to ask Ron a little bit later about that, but you can subscribe to that or download it right now, homegadgetgeeks.com. And then don't forget, join us on our Discord group. That seems to be where everybody has moved, Mike, over to Discord. So theaverageguy.tv/Discord get you in. Ron is joining us tonight. Ron is a listener. He listens to us over on Ask the Podcast Coach. He's a 3D printer guy, super big nerd. If you just look what's behind him, you'll kind of catch on to what he's into. Ron, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be on.
Good to have you, Ron. We know you because you printed this big badge that sits right up above my left shoulder and has become kind of the prominent Home Gadget Geeks badge. You made some smaller ones, which I still need to get over to Wieger. I just haven't been over to his house yet, but I'll get those. Did I bring them?
No. Cigars and those. It's on the list.
I know.
We need to bring over to my place.
It's too bad we live just 30 minutes from each other.
I know.
Ron was kind enough to print these up for me and actually sent me a big group of them. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But Ron is up in Canada. Ron, where are you exactly in Canada?
So I am in the Kitchener-Waterloo area of Ontario, Canada.
Is everybody as nice up there as they say? Is Canada really just like the nicest place on the planet?
We are, but, sometimes we can be, just like the U.S., but in a lot of ways, like, I don't want to say anything bad about my U.S. friends because I have a lot of them. But no, we are pretty nice people.
Yeah. And Ron, what do you do? I mean, you're a maker, right? I mean, a lot of the things that you do, you podcast about, you talk about. What kind of got you into the maker space? I mean, what put you out to just start creating things?
Well, I guess it all comes back to the days when my dad used to do a lot of woodworking. So I guess in that sense, like I used to watch him work on stuff, build stuff, and it kind of got me intrigued. But I always remember being a kid wondering how things worked. I remember pulling apart not old, but brand new remote controls by accident because I was curious and then not figuring how to put them back together. So all that came into electronics. And then I started learning a little bit about 3D printing and what the whole idea was that you can make anything out of plastic. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And then my friend got one and I looked at a couple pieces, got hooked on the idea and was able to find this 3D printer for $160. And after I built it and played with it and had it print a few things, I kind of got hooked.
Is that when 3D printers first came out, they're pretty expensive. And right? The prices have kind of come down on those. You said 160, not too bad. Could the average guy, I mean, you've shown me, and maybe I'll get some links from you on where you could go to the most inexpensive printers, but is that the right place? Like like for folks buying drones, you buy the cheap ones first because you're going to break them, right? And then you move up to the more expensive ones. With 3D printers, same thing. Should somebody, if they were thinking of getting into this, would they start inexpensive and work their way up, or is it maybe better to go midway?
With 3D printers, it could be really, really farce in prices. Like, I mean, if you pay the big bucks, it's going to work. You're going to have less tinkering with it. With the ones that come from China, there is tinkering that's going to be involved, which means you might have to you might have to be better at soldering, or you might have to take your time just to understand it and put it together, because a lot of the stuff that comes from China are kits, which means you have to assemble the printer piece by piece by piece.
Hopefully there's no parts you have to print to put it together, right?
Believe it or not, that is true. There is some times where we have to, but that comes into the very cheap ends of the printers. But
Well, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, with one of my printers I have, which is known as the Troxy X1, probably the cheapest printer you can buy for $125. It needs parts printed because it doesn't work without those printed parts. So you have to struggle with the printer to make it work and then make it print.
So put it together, get it printing, and then replace some of those with printed parts, right? Kind of deal. So you can print the upgrades kind of right there. So if for the average American or Canadian, maybe even Australian, I don't know, it's sometimes, getting these parts, we always joke that you guys pay twice as much for everything. Is that also true? Is buying these in Canada twice as much or more expensive than here in the United States?
Yeah, it is, because everybody seems to go by US pricing. So give you an idea, the Canadian dollar is worth 75 cents. The American dollar is worth $1.33. So you do the math, we pay about 33% more to get these printers.
Joe Paddock in the chat room, he says he loves his, is it Prusa? Prusa MK3. Is that what you said earlier? Is that a pretty good one?
That is one of the more higher end of the Spectrum printers, and it actually is a very good printer. Prusa Research, which makes that printer, they take everything and they basically do everything to the printer. They test it, they run it, they make sure it works, and then they'll package it in a box and then ship it out to you. In that case, I like that idea. And I know a lot of Prusa owners that said, you'll take it from their cold, dead hands before they'll let you even buy it, before they would let it out of their site. So
you said 126 on the cheap end, but if you start talking about like the Prusas and there's probably, higher end ones, and obviously we're not talking about the ones that are in, full production warehouses, but for an average person, what can you spend on a printer if you want to go into the high end? Like, what's a Prusa cost? What's kind of the highest end for a home user?
Prusa would be up there. I've seen printers for up to $1,000, even more.
Okay.
For the home user. And I've seen them as low as $200 for a printer. Prusa would set you back about $799 if you had it sent to you. If you had it pre-built, if I remember correctly, I believe it's $1,400 right now.
Okay. Wow. So then when we talk about these different, as you scale up, right, from a $120 one all the way up to, let's say, a $1,400 one, for me, when I see the price difference, a lot of times, because I've done some just basic like Googling, right, seeing kind of how I could get into this, I see a big difference being in the size and what you can print. But what other things, what makes a good printer, maybe besides size?
Quality. Mattering on how it prints out. Now, looking at different prints, there are different qualities you can do. With any type of slicer, you can set it for how much of a layer height you want. That's how much you want that each layer to be, how high you want it to print out. So take, for instance...
And I'm guessing the lower the height, the higher detail you can get because you're doing one layer at lower intervals?
Correct.
Okay.
So something like this coin right here that I have right in my hand, this was printed at 2 millimeters. So layer height 0.2. And as you can see, I don't know if you can get the quality. It's
good detail.
You can see the detail. Detail's great. If you go to 0.1, it even looks sharper. Now, I know these webcams don't give us the best quality look at, but gives you an idea what these printers can do.
So what was that printed on? What printer was that one on?
This is printed on, is this the CR10? Yeah, this is the one I printed on the CR10. So that's our maker coin.
And you said it was 1 centimeter?
No, 1 millimeter.
Millimeter. Okay. So if you go on the low end, like a $120 printer, can it not go that low? I mean, are you limited? Maybe does it do 3, 4, 5, or do they all generally start at a low end?
You can go up to 0.4, but then you get what we call stringing. I get that a lot on my printers. I don't, and a lot of other people said they don't get it. And sometimes it matters on the slicer. Sometimes it matters on whatever product it is that we're using. Like
okay.
For to make the file. So give you an idea. Where is Cura right here? So let me just pull up Cura for you guys here so you guys can see it. What I'm looking at. This is Cura. So Cura allows me to take a design that's called an STL and allows me to print this object on my printer. So it turns it to another code that it can understand called G code. Basically, it's computer code with coordinates that the printer can understand that allows it to know how much plastic it has to lay down and how much you want. So if you're looking up here at the very top, how I got it set for 2.4, usually most people will print at 0.2. 0.3, it comes out a little bit stringy, but still good. 0.4, I find, is pushing it. And then I got to change all other settings, as you can see, just went in yellow.
I was going to say, so do those other settings adapt as you're changing that layer height? Are those automatically adapting, or are you having to do some math on the back end to change those other settings?
Sometimes you got to do some math on the other side, but
okay.
9 out of 10 times what they're telling you is that they're saying, hang on, I can't print this with the settings you have right now. You're going to have to adjust them.
Okay.
Ron, in a world here, I'll put this up. So you printed for us, and I've shown these before, these little coins. By the way, are these a thing in the maker community? In other words, you sent me one of yours as well. We've got that. Mike, I've got one for you as well. I'll bring that over. But is this a thing in the maker community? Do you do this often? I mean, this is really cool to kind of have a, to have this this coin, or what do you call it? What would you call this? A badge.
Maker coins.
Okay, coins. Okay.
Yeah. Believe it or not, a lot of us do have our own different coins, but we all have different types of takes on them. So one of my good friends, Chris Riley from Chris's Basement, this is his maker coin.
Oh, look at that.
Multicolor printing. So he's using 4 colors.
And how long do you think does it take him to print that?
I would say approximately maybe... depending on how the purge block is, you're probably looking at about maybe 2 hours per print.
Okay. So not too bad.
And 4 different colors. Does he have a special printer that allows for different colors at the same time, or is he having to reload the plastic each time for different colors?
He did that on the Prusa MK3 using something called the MU22, which is an option that you can get for the MK3, which allows you to do multicolor prints.
Okay.
The only bad thing about multicolor prints is you end up with a purge block. So what a purge block is all the multicolors that you have pushed through your extruder to enable you to print in those colors. So as a color goes through your nozzle, it can sometimes dye the nozzle. So it takes a longer time to push color through. Okay. Red, when I do my red and white coins, I have to have a big purge block between the red and the white because the red is so much more dominant that the white doesn't show up as well.
Okay. And does that purge block end up in the actual printing that you're making, or is that is it making a block over to the side, or where is that block? Where is it at? Usually
the block is off to the side in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay. So it sends the nozzle over there to do a little block to get that stain out or whatever it is. And then it comes back to the main object it's printing.
That is correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool.
Ron, so for a coin like ours that you made, what's the print time on something like this, and how much material does it make to take one of these?
Well, that coin itself takes about 1 hour to print because I actually have to change filament manually. I don't have a multi-printer option,
And
unfortunately.
you got green on top. It's hard to see on this, but you got green on top with a white filler on the inside. It's like an Oreo cookie, except it's green, right?
Similar to that, yeah.
Yeah.
So what it is that I used two different types of filament. I used the same filament. It's known as PLA, plastic. I'm trying to remember what the full definition is, but what it is it's an actual filament that can be biodegradable. So,
interesting.
Safe on the earth, better on the earth. But what it does is, to make that coin specifically, I had to use two different filaments. So the first filament run I would run would be green. That takes approximately, let's say about 15 minutes. Then pop it out, pop in my white runs, then pop out white, then pop back in the green. So you got like about 15, then 30, then another 15.
And does it just stop for you and wait because it's going to run, stops for you, you change the filament, starts again?
Yeah, it goes, and then it starts screaming at you like an alarm clock telling you, hey, change my filament.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
then change it, done.
With the filament, then, this has been kind of the interesting thing for me. So when you're printing different objects, something like a coin, maybe you don't care as much about, I don't know the correct scientific term for it, but like, let's say I could maybe bend that a little bit. But let's say I'm printing a part that needs to have a little more stability to it, a little rigid. Is that all dependent on the thickness of what you're printing, or are there different filaments that have different, I don't know, like tensile strength maybe is I don't know what the term is, but more dense, and so they can hold a little bit more, especially if you're using it for something that maybe is going to have some weight on it or going to have some friction with it?
Well, okay, that's a good question, because you're asking about two different things here.
Okay, see, I figured I didn't know what I was talking about, so.
No, that's okay, honestly. So, how we buy soft drinks like these? They're in a plastic bottle.
Yeah.
The plastic's called PET G. We print with PET G, and this is a PET G spool. Let me get this open here so you guys can see what the spool looks like here. So that's a spool right there, a filament.
Oh, that's
large. About 1 kilo.
Okay.
So same plastic our 2-liter bottles are made out of.
Yep.
That's the material right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Then we have ABS.
And ABS reminds me of maybe something like you'd see in a really rigid pipe or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what this is right here,
Yeah.
ABS. This is just has me a yellow color, but ABS is both have good strength. So but they're also flexible. So they do have a little bit of flex to them. PLA comes in the same type of container, same everything as this one is, but it is more rigid and more stronger. But if you're looking for like a really strong, solid hard print, nylon is the way to go. But nylon can be very hard to print with. And that comes into a fun factor is that with nylon, because it's hyperscopic, it absorbs water out of the air. So you're constantly trying to keep it dry. So you can't, like, if you had like nylon just sitting out for like 2 hours, it could absorb enough water that can make it unusable.
Wow.
And water does get attracted to filament.
And so do you have areas that you store it that are dry, or do you have to come up with something to do that?
Most of us do store them in Ziploc bags, or we use little containers that contain silica. This is silica right here, gel, and we'll build like a container for it, pop it inside the bag to keep it fresh.
Okay. And what kind of humidity? I mean, what's too much humidity? Later in the show, we're going to talk a little cigar humidity, and of course, that we want about 70%. What kind of humidity do you want to keep those things at?
The drier, the better.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way.
As low as you can go, right?
Yeah, I try to keep my basement at around 40 to 50, if that.
Okay.
That's where my printers are, and that's one of the silica gel holders that I printed for myself.
Okay.
And I try to keep my room that less humid, just to prevent any type of wetness filament, because if your filament gets wet, then you gotta dry it. Drying's the fun part.
Right.
So I'd assume as you use, actually real quick then. So the coins that you made for us, what are those made out of? Which one of those three they were
That is made out of PLA.
PLA. And that's the 2-liter bottle of plastic.
No, Petri is the 2-liter bottle.
Oh, okay. Okay. There's 3 different types we talked about. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then do you have to tell the printer what type of filament you're using? Does it affect how hot it gets to melt it, or does it change any of those settings?
Yeah, actually, it's not the printer that does it. It's the G code that you write.
Interesting.
So, depending on like if I go back in, like if I pull up Cura for you guys again, just give me a second here. Switching back and forth the cameras.
When you're designing something like let's look at this little ship here. So you create, or someone created this, right? And you got the file to pull that in. When they're designing that, does it matter? Do they have to know what you're going to be printing with, or can you design something and then print it with whichever material you want?
You can design and then print it with whatever you want.
Okay.
I find there are some people out there that say, well, you can't really do that, but I've never had a problem with that. So if you look at the top here where I got my mouse over, it says material.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I go down, come on. Oh, you're going to do that to me.
Of course, it's going to lock up on you, right? When you're trying to present it.
Well, what it's doing is it's moving my screen over to my other screen, which is weird.
Gotcha.
Shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to have to, I don't know why it's doing it. It was working today, but what it does, it brings out a list and then you select the type of plastic you're going to be using. So
Okay.
say PLA, PETG, nylon, ABS, and that's about it that I can think of right now. I think plastic called PP, and I believe there's another plastic that's its initials, and there's one other one I can't remember the name of it. But mattering on the type of plastic we're going to be printing with, it will actually give you an idea of what type of heat you would need. Okay. Most companies will actually put on the back of the box how much heat you need. Like, say for instance, going back to this box here for 3D Fuel, they say their heated temperature should be around 240 to 260 Celsius.
Wow. These printers are getting hot.
Yes. Well, you got to remember, you got to make the plastic molten so it can actually form whatever you're building.
Right, right. So then you're setting that in Cora, you're setting which plastic, and then that's it? That's all you have to set? Or does that tell you then a setting you have to change? Like you just said, it knows maybe 240. Is there another setting you change later when you're going to actually print it?
Well, some people like to print hotter. Some people like to print colder.
Oh, you can manually set that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I print at, whenever I work with PLA, I try to stick around 200 to 215. Sometimes you have to go hotter depending on the type of plastic that you're trying to melt.
So these things, I mean, do these pull some juice? I'm imagining the power supply, and I mean, is this something that your lights start to flicker when you start to print?
No, I haven't had that yet. And apparently another printer by the name of MakerMuse did a test on how much power they draw, and they don't really draw that much power.
Interesting.
Well, you think, Mike, it's probably a pretty small area that they actually have to get really hot.
That's a good point. This isn't like a hair dryer that's heating, doing that much.
Trying to heat up the air around it and all the right. You have a pretty finite spot. So that's going to be one of my questions too, Ron, was like, do these things, if you're doing a lot of printing, would you see a notice, or would you notice a difference in your electricity bill just because of maybe the power those heaters are pulling?
You might, depending on how many printers you have. Now, the wattage I think was about they said, as Mike just put out there, Joe did. He just said his Prusa is running at 100 watts, like a 100-watt light bulb.
Yeah, which is you'd never notice it. Yeah, you'd never notice it. No, not that.
Now here's actually one hot end to show you guys the idea of a hot end. So here would be a nozzle. I don't have a nozzle on here because I pulled this out of my printer. It's an old one. But as you can see here, that's the heater block. So this whole block here would heat up. Right in here is the heater cartridge that would fit inside of it. It's just a round little circular thing, goes in, and that's how you heat up your, as your plastic comes through here, it gets heated up and then comes out in the nozzle.
So a cartridge, is that something you have to replace often?
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Matters on the printer, matters on how long you've run it. If you're noticing weird type of options, then you might have to change it.
Okay.
It varies in ways.
Ron, Kevin in the chat room's asking any recommendations on printing on top of another plastic part, or would it be best to print them and glue them to the base material? Which would you could you print on top of something, or is that just easier just to glue it together?
Okay, so there's a little bit of questions that would have to be asked.
Yeah.
Are we talking PLA on PLA? Are we talking PLA on PETG? Depending on the type of plastics you print with, you can crazy glue them together, but some plastics don't like each other. Like if you try to print, say, PLA, and then you want to print a ring of PETG, that would not stick. That you'd have to super glue together. If you're doing a print on one printer, print on another printer, then yes, you can glue them. It's really hard to explain because it's more of a visual question. I would have to have a look at the plastic, see how it was printed to get an idea if you can.
Right.
So there are some objects where I can print this. The other piece I need to print.
Well, and tell us what you're showing for those folks listening on audio.
Okay, so right now I'm just holding a plastic part. This is just a sample from a video game. Final Fantasy 15. I forget what they call these, but basically it's your health and your energy. I was printing this for a friend as a prop. So this part here is made out of just everyday PLA. The next piece I was printing was going to be made out of PETG, because PETG has a little bit of give, so it can look like you're crushing it. It won't break, but you can actually try to crush it in such a sense. That would be printed on with different plastics. Those two plastics can't talk to each other, so I would be using something like super glue to hold it together, and hopefully it would stay.
Okay. Is super glue your friend in a lot of cases? Do you find you use it quite a bit?
Oh yeah.
In a part like the coin you made for us, all the same material. So print, set it, change it, print it again, and it sticks because it's the same material across the board.
And it's all in one shot.
Yeah. And this, by the way, you might, if you're listening on audio, you might want to stop and head over to the video. Ron leaves a hole, right? That's how you do this, is you don't print the Home Gadget Geeks logo as well as the words down below. Then those come through on the white. Could you do the center black? Would that also work to have, it looks better white, but could you do black as well?
Yeah, I can. I can do whatever color you wanted in the center.
Yeah, no, I like it white, but I just kind of wondering, somebody wanted it dark, pretty easy. One of the things I noticed here, you did the AG, right? The average guy, again, hard to see on the video, but maybe you can see it. You did the average guy logo on the side. That's a real 3D, right? You got to kind of line that up. Do you do that in the software? You grab that font, bring it in, and kind of say, just don't print in these spaces. How hard is it to get that on the side like that?
It can be a little tricky. Let me just open up because I did that in a CAD file. So I'm just trying to figure out which CAD file has the original. Okay, that's CAD. That's not what I'm looking for. Sorry, guys. I do know this.
No, you're doing great, Ron. No worries. We're not like we're going anywhere tonight. We're okay. We're okay. Just drinking wine and talking about 3D printing. That's what we do. That's what we do here.
There it is. This. So I'm using a program called Tinkercad when I was designing your coins. A little bit of first I used 3D Builder. 3D Builder is something free from Microsoft gives you.
I think I've played with that one, or I at least downloaded it and tried to look at it, and then I was instantly confused.
Well, I got 3D Builder open right here. So let me go open. Let's open this one right here. So there's your logo, and there's the title of the whole show. The way I import that is using a program called just importing a picture. This is kind of nice little thing because it'll turn any picture that I want into a 3D object. Then I can take that 3D object and then I throw it into Tinkercad. And this is Tinkercad right here. So it shows me the 3D object clear. As you can see, there's the glasses right there that I put in.
Dude, that's freaking cool. I'm just that view right there is really cool.
So that's the whole coin itself. Let me blow this up so people can see it a lot
This
clearer.
is definitely one of those episodes, guys. If you're listening on the audio, come over to the video and check out what he's showing us. So he's taking us through, he's showing us the actual software. We're able to see what he's doing to build these models.
So what I did is I brought the title in here. I also had to build the block in in the Microsoft program, because the problem is I could not build the block in Tinkercad.
So what do you mean by building a block?
So when I was making that, so if I wanted to say I wanted to print the object,
Yeah.
let me just get rid of this here. So go to object, insert. So I go to insert here, and all here I have different formats. So hexagon was not available in Tinkercad. So I went in here, made one hexagon, brought that into Tinkercad, made the logo, brought it back into Tinkercad so I could adjust it and make it work.
Gotcha. Okay, so you made the actual coin shape in 3D Builder and then took that into Tinkercad.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Tinkercad then produced this for me. Now, as you can see, there are 3 lines. There's a line here. That's your bottom. This is your top. Now, everything that's done in 3D printing measurements are going to be by millimeters. Let me see if I can pull up one of these.
That's a good thing the United States uses the metric system then.
Yeah, right.
Well, you guys mostly use imperial still, don't
Thanks,
you?
US.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
So this is this tells me it's 12 millimeters tall. The length of it's going to be 602. This one turned out to 600, but I recorrected that. It didn't save the format information. I got moved a little. But what I did is I actually measured everything out. Gives me the measurements of what I'm looking at. And then once you start designing, you just start playing around with settings or whatever. You can even manually set it. Say I wanted to be 30 by...
And you're doing all this in a web browser.
That is correct.
Wow.
And this is free.
Okay.
To
so
anyone that wants to use it.
What does Tinkercad give you that 3D Builder doesn't?
More control. Don't get me wrong. I love Microsoft. I love what they do, but as a program, it can be a little bit cumbersome. Yeah, I also had some problems where when I'm designing things, I can't seem to get them leveled properly, so that when I print them, think of a. Okay, I'm just trying to think of an object here. There we go. So say my coin, for instance. Let me go back to me. So my coin, for instance, it was doing this, where I would have 2 spikes hanging down, and it made it lopsided, so I couldn't print this properly. Threw it in Tinkercad, did some editing, cutting, cropping, which Tinkercad allowed me to see what was going on. And I got leveled, and then I was able to print it, and it turned out perfect. So there are some things that Microsoft's 3D Builder does great, and then there's some things it does terrible because Microsoft's not working on it anymore. They kind of made it, and then they never gone back to it, which is kind of a shame because I would love to see them work on it because it is such a great, powerful tool that it could be something else.
They had made a commitment to a bunch of 3D tools that then they kind of lost interest in. Even, there was 3D Paint that they were working on. I think they thought 3D was going to be the future. It didn't quite go as far as they were hoping, and really have not come back to this as well. So Joe P. Paddock says, tell you what, 3D printing has helped me learn the metric system better. So yeah, and it's not that hard. It's just relative. It's just figuring out like what is a millimeter, what is a centimeter, not what do they mean, because that's pretty easy, right? Everything's if everything's power of 10, but it's that reference point. How long is a meter? You say to an American a foot, and they kind of have some idea. It's about this far. An inch is about that far. So it's just kind of learning those pieces as well. Canada uses a metric system, so no issues there.
Yeah.
So how did you? So how did you get? So you were showing that, but what did you do? Did you have to import these glasses, or this is AG for average guy, right? Did you have to import that in and then kind of flip it on its side to get it to see that? And then
so
you basically just say, don't print anything here. Is that kind of what you do?
Well, when I brought in the glasses, so I'll show you how I did that. So going back to 3D Builder here, I basically opened up 3D Builder and I went looking for your picture, one with the glasses on it, which I'm going to see if I still have that file sitting here. Because like I said, note, I lost everything in a download. Something happened to my computer and everything got lost.
Yeah,
So
no worries.
I do apologize for not having it up
No
right
worries,
away.
Ron. Yeah.
But
If you can't find it, not a big deal.
yeah, well, I brought the picture into here and then I would automatically just manipulate it. But
Okay.
if you want to see it, what it looks like outside of this. So I'm going to ungroup this. And grouping allows me to put things in and out. So there's the glasses right there. Come on. Let me. Okay, you're going to do that. No, I don't want to group. Ungroup that, please.
So is it almost like, okay, so you brought the object in, obviously it was solid, and is there a way to make it almost a reverse of a solid where it takes that shape out?
This is what we call is a hole. So the hole would allow me to put the object into the object and make an indent.
Okay.
Where if it was solid, it would print that sticking out.
Gotcha.
So I decided hole would be better. Well,
looks like Tinkercad makes that relatively simple.
It does. Tinkercad is one of the most simplest CAD programs. And I always recommend it to people who are getting into CAD to go give Tinkercad a try because it's simple. It just makes things so much easier. And once you got and you can actually get an idea of the design. There's other programs out there made by the same guys called something called Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is pure CAD. I get lost in it all the time whenever I'm working in Fusion 360. I find usually I end up going back to Tinkercad because it just makes it simple and clean.
Okay.
And I find that once you get used to 3D printing, like my friend has told me, play around in Tinkercad, build new items. And I've been building in Tinkercad for a long period of time. I haven't had a need to move over to Fusion 360, but I have used Fusion 360 and gotten some amazing designs come out, but nothing I haven't made anything I need to print yet because everything I need is on Thingiverse. It seems someone's already designed it. Someone's already come up with an idea.
So Thingiverse now, I think that's the first time we kind of brought that up. So Thingiverse, as compared to jumping into something like Tinkercad where you're building it out yourself, Thingiverse is almost like a repository for, like, for example, you could upload what you created for our coin to Thingiverse, and Thingiverse is the completed file. You literally just grab it and your printer prints it.
That's correct. So Tinkercad here, which I'm going to bring up on the screen, sorry, I should say Thingiverse, is a repository for everything 3D printing. You want something, you can find it here. Give me an idea. Something that you would think you would need to print.
Let's look for let's look for the Ring doorbell bracket.
Okay. So type in Ring.
Just Ring doorbell or something.
P-E-L-L. There's the Ring doorbell angle brackets. Every single one of them that someone has come up with.
And actually, I said the wrong brand. I'm really curious. Do they have Simply Safe? SIMPLI
Not
Safe?
sure.
Let's try it.
How's that again?
SIMPLI and safe, all one word.
Okay, sorry. I'll put that together.
I wonder if there's anything for any of these cameras or doorbells. It's not as popular yet, so I'm...
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And some of the exact stuff that people have been looking for.
Yeah.
Ron, why is a lot of the
left right angle that's exactly the one I've been needing right there is that blue one.
Oh boy, Wieger's buying a 3D printer this weekend.
I think so. I think I might have to go grab one.
Ron, why are all the parts blue? Not all of them, but why do I see blue as an option a lot? Is that a color, you see right there? Is that just a design color? In other words, is that something really common that it's designed in?
Well, design color is chosen by the program itself, but as you can see, they use it so you can look at it.
Got it.
Make it more visible. And even in Tinkercad, you can play around with these things and have a 3D view so you can see what angle they're at, what type of screw holes you need. Everything is on this. allows you to view it before you actually go, yeah, that's what I need.
And that's where I can imagine, the screw holes being a perfect example. Creating something like this from scratch takes a lot of time. I can imagine. I mean, maybe not for an advanced person who has done this all their life, but if it was me, I found a new object I need, and maybe this is my first, second, third time using Tinkercad, jumping in there and doing all the measurements to make sure you have all the screw holes that line up. Like, what are some other tools that make this stuff easier? Let's say I know generally what I need to make. What kind of stuff do you use to help you in that process?
Believe it or not, it's in this little black box.
Oh, everyone's got a fun little black box. I want to know what's in yours.
Calipers, digital calipers. These things have saved my bacon so many times because we need to know how big the hole is. You can easily find that out. You can measure how far you need to make the holes. So when you're looking at this and you're going, okay, so I need it to be about 42 millimeters across from each other. I can make a mark on my computer and say, right here at 42, drag a line down, match that line and pop it another 42 and pop that circle right there. And I can adjust it in any of the programs. And that's how we can, measuring it with calipers makes it a lot easier when you're trying to figure out that print.
Right. Okay.
Take, for instance, the coin I was printing for you guys. I basically went through 3 other coins. I was going, okay, how big is this one? That one's that width. Next one is how big? Okay. Roughly how far are they usually? And I'll be measuring all that on the calipers. Then I was able to take that information that I measured from these and was able to import that into my program to get that cube to be the right size when I'm working on it.
And those calipers, I imagine, are pretty accurate.
Yep. I've had nothing. These calipers have been pretty accurate.
What's the brand on those, Ron?
So this is a cheap pair from
inexpensive.
Very inexpensive.
Inexpensive, yeah.
From Canadian Tire, or as we like to call them,
okay.
Different brand, different name altogether. But, and then add tire at the end. But it rhymes with. Let's just say it rhymes with the word. It starts with the letter C. Let's just
there we go.
Good enough.
And these cost me about $30. And this is kind of like one of those designer tools that you'll never get out of my cold unless I'm dead. Then you can get them, but they stay in my hands all the time.
Yeah, I'm seeing them range on Amazon, between $7 and this one $40. So not terribly expensive, right? To be able to kind of get into
$30 to $40 is a good range to pay for calipers, and that means you're getting some really good high quality ones.
Yeah.
Or you can go to Harbor Freight and get them cheap.
Yeah, Joski says I got a cheap one from Harbor Freight. I guess it depends on how accurate, how much you're going to use them, what are you going to use them for, right? Just like any tool, if you're going to use a screwdriver once, just buy the cheapest thing you can find. If you're going to make a living off of it, you get the one that's you get the really good one. So I never would have. I'm glad you brought that up. We hadn't talked about that in the pre-show, and that's probably you're dependent on that tool for everything. Anything else tool wise you're using for these? Besides your computer hard drive, of course, you want to make sure
computer's the second one.
Back up your stuff.
Yeah, and filament also.
Right.
Is important.
Yeah, and those as well. Ron, you had mentioned in pre-show a little bit about the maker community, and certainly when we went Thingiverse, and that is kind of a visual representation of how generous the maker community is. Do you find that across the board? For a long time, the open source community on the software side, some success, some, a lot of the companies that came out were closed source. In the maker community, people pretty generous with both their designs. Are there people selling them? How's that work?
Well, in a lot of respect, yeah, there are people that sell models. There are people that make money at this. There are some of us that do it for a hobby. There's some of us that do it because we just love it. I'm just trying to think of the best. It really matters on the person themselves. Some people will just put it out for free. Other people, because they spend a lot of time on it, they may charge for it. Depends on each person. Like there's different repositories. Now, this is the biggest one is Thingiverse. We also have a repository called Cults. Cults, some people put prices on their stuff, some people don't. Like one I'm working on right now from, I've downloaded this from Maverick Designs, and someone asked me to print this for them. So I'm actually working on this right now. It's a Sailor Moon full model. So that is just the head alone. It is very fine detail that was pointed at 0.12, taking into consideration what we call magic numbers, which is another story, which is a long story to talk about how that works. But the detail that I got off of this, I don't know if it's details.
The detail looks really clean. Now, are you cleaning that up after it prints, or is that straight off the press?
No, that is after I cleaned it up off the print.
Okay.
So what would be around that would be something called supports. And depending on the type of support you use, would depend on what you selected in your printer. And then you're just spend time breaking off supports.
Okay.
And they're just used there as a weak point to support a weaker point. So with the hair, I don't know if it can pick this up too well, but for her hair, you can see under there, it is not attached to the main base. There is space in between it from the face to where the hair line is.
I can see that.
And because it's not attached to anywhere, it needs some way to be supported. So those plastic pieces would go up to support it. And as you peel it off, you get a clean break and you don't see any of the connection where it was attached to.
So then in a print like that, how many different pieces are you gonna have to print to put that all together? You did just the head, and then is it head, torso, legs?
Head, torso, legs, arms, hand. So I think it's about 24 pieces altogether.
Wow. And then is it just standard super glue that you're using to put those together? Or is there a special plastic glue that works best?
Well, right now I am testing out a new glue. This stuff here, I haven't had a chance to crack it open yet to use it, but I picked this up at one of the maker places, one of the festivals that happens for 3D printers, and it's known as 3D Gloop. Their glue, their idea of their glue is basically it will actually cause PLA to melt and mold and weld together, kind of like what acetone will do to any plastic. If you use acetone on plastic, it'll automatically kind of make it weld together.
I did not know that about acetone. Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing what you can find on there, but sometimes, you may for what you want, you may have to pay for it. Sometimes you don't. You just got to search for the product that you're looking for.
Ron, in the maker community, you'd put a post. I think it was in our Discord group. There's been some rumblings and some discord. Let's just put it that way, in our Discord group. What's going on in the maker community around one of the major players?
Oh, you're talking about Meg Magazine closing their doors. Yeah. So a lot of us been talking about, we're not really sure what's going to happen in the maker community on that one, because not only did they close their doors, but the guy that runs Maker itself was also the head of running something called Maker Fair, which was an investment that people would pay into to get the name that they can use the Maker Fair name to promote their fair. Well, because Maker closed doors, but Maker Fair is still owned by this guy, we have no idea what's happening. Some people are saying the worst, that this is the end of Maker Fairs, that we're not going to see another one. But it leaves a question of what's going to happen to the little guys that use the name Maker Fair, and what's going to be happening with the Maker Fair community, because we also have the big one that's going to be happening. I believe it's in November, or is it September? It's one of those months. We have the big Maker Fair in New York City. Now, we don't even know if New York City Maker Fair is going to happen because of this news and information that kind of went viral.
Yeah. What do we know why, or what happened there?
We don't know. They've kind of left us out in the dark. They just said, I guess it's just a run of money. They didn't make enough money and weren't able to continue.
How common are maker fairs around? I'm assuming there's these from medium size to small maker fairs that happen all around the country, probably internationally, and then they license that word? Is that kind of the Maker Faire idea to be able to use it? Is that how it worked?
That was the way that the Maker Faire was doing it, that you would
Right.
have to pay a licensing fee to use that name. That's why we have many other different types of fairs popping up. Companies like one of the big Maker Fairs that happens that's 3D printed only related was MRF, otherwise known as the Midwest Reprap Festival. That's what we call these printers, Reprap. And everybody, when I mean everybody, I mean everybody that's involved in the 3D printing community shows up to these events. This year alone, we had Thomas Sandlander. He's from Czech Republic. We had CNC Kitchen, which is from, I believe he's in Australia. We had Maker Noob, 3D Maker Noob. He's from Malta. And then we had also the usual player, Joe Telling, who's known as the 3D printing nerd. He was also there too, but he said that one all the time. We also had people that you might know, like Barnacules. He was there.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he was down there.
I'm a big fan of his YouTube.
Yeah, I got to meet him. We talked a little bit. I got to interview him, but you know, we all go to these events just to have fun, talk to each other. It's like a whole family get together.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also that community, like we like to print plastic. We like to work with plastic. Oh, sorry. Tom and CNC are from Germany. My mistake. Thank you so much, Joe Paddock. I made a mistake on that one. But we go to these events just to talk to each other, just to find out what's new. And you can make new friends. It's an amazing community.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, we've done some tech community stuff here around our podcast, and a lot of the guys that listen to Home Gadget Geeks, Home Server Show before that, Reset podcast. We've gotten together in Indianapolis the last, I think, 6 or 7 years. And it's a great time, right? Get together, share ideas. Does everybody drag their 3D printers along? I mean, do you haul that out and set it up? Is that what happens?
Oh, yes. A lot of us actually do bring our own 3D printers, and some of them bring big printers. Like someone was turned a 3D printer basically using one of those racks that you would cool food on, you know, like those cookie rack sheets.
Yeah.
Someone used one of those racks and turned it into a 3D printer.
Really?
Ran right on the racks using wheels, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. Oh, so it used the metal slats to move around on those things?
That is correct.
That's cool. Yeah. No, that's super cool. Ron, why'd you do this? I mean, this is, first of all, thank you for, you know, we've been talking about this, you and I, for, I don't know, 3-4 months maybe, as you put this together. And, you know, thanks for, you just sent them to me. And I appreciate that. But what kind of drew you to do this? I mean, it's a lot of work. You probably have hours just in making the design work. And I know you printed these several times though, right? You kept sending me pictures. You're like, oh, I didn't get it just right. You know, here's a picture of one I didn't get done. What was it, kind of the challenge, or what made you want to do this?
Yeah, just for fun.
Wow.
Believe it or not, a lot of us design stuff for fun, or we just design it because we feel that we need something like that. When I was designing your coin, I kind of looked at it and went, you know what? Your logo was simple enough that I was able to put into the printer, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll design a coin just for the fun of it. Mm-hmm. And actually, as I was working in it, designing it, coming up with an idea, you know, basically pen and paper, first of all, was just drawing out everything with what I wanted to do. And then once I put it into the computer and started playing with it, it was more of a learning how to do more things with it, is what came out of that. But it was more for, I wanted to see if I could get it, what I could do with that logo, and, you know, see what I can do.
Yeah, you sent me a bunch. I still have some from the first batch. I'll just show Ron sent me this envelope, and we got a bunch that is in here. Ron, I've been considering, you know, giving them away for Patreon subscribers. So if you're at a certain dollar amount, and I can get your address, I'd mail you one. Any new subscribers, I haven't figured that out yet, so I'll announce that somehow, maybe in the next pod. First of all, you'd be okay if I did that to
go right
help
ahead,
kind of pass these around.
Go right ahead. That's what we print them for.
And I owe you a little bit for postage and whatever material, so we'll get that.
Don't worry about that.
We'll get that to you as well. But I'm kind of wondering, chat room, if we did something like this through Patreon, just trying to kind of think I'd love to get these distributed. I mean, these are really cool. Chat room, who in the chat room, would you guys be interested if we did something like that? I'm just trying to make sure I've got enough to cover postage. They're not very heavy, to be honest with you. I imagine these won't be that much more expensive than maybe twice what a letter here in the US. Maybe a little more expensive if I got to get it to Canada or Australia. I don't know how to mail to Australia. I got to figure that one out. They're super light, and so let me know in the chat room. That's okay, Ron, if I do that?
Go right ahead. That's what I built them for.
No, I
I'm so
appreciate
excited
it.
to see it in person too. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I know. Super cool. Let us know in the chat room. Ron, anything else we didn't cover when we think about the community or 3D printing? Anything else we didn't cover that if somebody was listening to this needs to know?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the printer itself. I hear a lot of people always saying, well, I need a big print bed. I need this to be big. And the first thing I say to anybody that's going to be buying a 3D printer is, what are you going to print on it? That seems to be the question, because depending on certain types of bed, like I have an Ender 3, which is made by Creality. It has a 235 by 235 bed. I believe the build height is 300 millimeters, so if I remember correctly. 300? I believe it's 300. And that allows me to be able to print 300 up, and the bed is a square. Mostly that bed is perfect for anything I print. Also, it matters on price. What is your price plan? How much did you want to spend? And, if someone says, well, money's not an option, then fine, I'll point them to Prusa. If they say that's too much, then I point them down to the Chinese printers. Because, number one, we got to watch it with Chinese printers, because some Chinese printers, roughly all of them, don't have something called thermal runaway. Thermal runaway is very important. I don't know if you guys ever looked up this, but type in ANET A8 fire in Google pictures. You'll see people that burn their houses down.
Ooh, yikes.
These printers have no security and have no safety features on them. So they get hot to a certain point, cartridge falls out, hits something, poof, fire.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures. They're just, it melts stuff. Mm-hmm. All right.
So thermal runaway is one of the things. And I always tell everybody, when you get a new printer, put in firmware that has thermal runaway, and that's easy enough to find. And that's a whole different story. Once that's in there, then you can print to your heart's content. Some prints will take you hours. Some prints can take you over days. I had a print that took 4 days to print. And it was half of the shield for Zelda, for someone that wanted to print the shield. Found an STL of it, started printing. First print, 4 hours. Next print was another first print was 4 days. Next print was another 4 days. It's just because how big it was. Mm-hmm. So I had the whole arm length, the whole wideness. But be prepared to know that, these prints can sometimes take forever.
Take a while. Are they very loud? Like when it's running, is it a pretty loud machine?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
But there are ways to make it quiet too. If you have now Creality's been really cool because they just put out a new board, and that 1.1.4 board has something we call traumatic drivers. And traumatic drivers make your stepper motors quiet. When you fire up a printer that doesn't have it, you'll hear it ring. It like sings. Like if I'm doing circular, you hear can be annoying. Mm-hmm. With traumatic drivers, silence. You don't hear the driver. You don't hear the gears turning. You don't hear the stepper drivers trying to turn the mortar, trying to move the bed, and everything else. It is actually very quiet. But when you're looking at a printer, what is your price range and how much do you want to be tinkering with it would be the best answer.
Anything we should definitely avoid on printers? Are there any that are kind of known in the market, like, oh man, this company's been selling these, people are buying them because they're cheap and they're not worth it at all?
Yes, there are a few.
Anything from China, I'm guessing? Is
that from China?
Okay.
Do not buy Troxys. I've had Troxy XY, so that's TROXY. Okay. They are Every time I got one, it's been nothing but headaches trying to rewire it and make it work. Creality, been pretty good. Like I said, watch out for the firmware. They're probably one of the better of the three. And whatever you do, if you buy an ANET printer, please, please, please do not. I know they look cheap. They look great. They're $50 to $100. I understand that. But there's going to be problems that you're going to run into that if you're new to it, please don't. I recommend the Ender 3 is a new printer, the Ender 5. They are basically your best printers to go with right now. If you want to look cheap. If you want to spend the money, definitely get Prusa. Hands down. It's the way to go.
Good to
The
know.
Monoprice is pretty good too.
Oh, I was going to say, Tajoski is asking, Joe's asking in the chat room. So he assumes, or is it true? Is Monoprice just rebranded something else? Is it a white label kind of printer that they sold to Monoprice?
Yeah, Monoprice is from what I know. Let me just pull up their thing because I know that they have one printer. I'm not even sure where that printer came from, which is known as the Monoprice Mini. I have no idea what brand that could be. We're thinking it's Geek. A couple other people have said it's something else. But the Monoprice Mini, we're not even sure where that one came from. The other two printers that they have, the Monoprice Select, and I think it's the Monoprice Select Plus, are Wanhao printers. Wanhao is another 3D printer company. They're okay. Now the Delta, which is the one that has the which has like 3 spouts that connect to it. That Delta printer, I have no idea who that came from. It looks familiar to the FL Suns, one of their printers, but I'm not 100% sure if that is from there.
It looks cool.
Yeah,
$160.
Yeah, can't go wrong with them.
Yeah.
But the Mini, I will warn you, is the Banshee, as my friend calls it. It is so loud and whines so much that drives my friend crazy.
Yeah.
But then again, you get what you pay for.
Right. Hey, you had shown, before we go and run out of time, you had shown a little black box earlier and said something about NASA. We can't let you go without you showing this thing. So pull that thing out. What do you got there?
This is NASA's own print that they put out on the net that you can download. This is called the CubeSat. The idea of a cube satellite is to be a small satellite that they can throw off the ISS. And no, that's how they launch these things.
I love the mental image of that. So it was like, all right,
whoosh.
get
And
out
that's
there.
what they do. They actually aim and they throw it. And what it's supposed to do is get information, and then as it falls down back to Earth, it just burns up and becomes nothing.
Oh, okay. Kind of a disposable satellite.
And that's the actual size of one.
That is similar to one of those sizes. Yeah.
Okay. It's not like a scaled down version.
Hopefully that thing comes in fast. I mean, you don't want that thing spinning around up there 17,000 miles an hour for too long.
Yeah,
it's pretty small and might be hard to track.
They usually last about 6 months to a year.
Wow. That's longer than I would have thought.
Yeah. And they do track it. NASA does.
Yeah.
One satellite that's kind of interesting in the 3D, not because 3D printed, because I'm also have a love for amateur radio, was something called SuitSat-1. SuitSat-1 was actually a mini satellite that was launched into space inside an old cosmonaut's flight suit. And what it would do is it would broadcast on the 2 megahertz, was it 200 megahertz? Yeah, 2. Yeah, broadcast on a 2-watt system that if anybody that had a handy walkie-talkie unit like that you see like policemen and everybody else walk around with, you'd punch in a code and you listen for that station to be broadcasting. And what it would have a special message on it. It'd also do slow scan television, which would display a picture, and it'll tell you how much battery power was left in the satellite and what temperature was in space.
Interesting.
And it broadcasted this all the time and had a special message. You can look them up. If you type in SuitSat-1 in Google, you'll find out all the information of it. And there was Aerosat-1, which was another satellite that they built, which was like a triangle, which they also launched off the International Space Station, which the whole ham community used also.
I'm sorry. Just this image of it's NASA, right? And you're kind of thinking space station, they're doing things, everything's planned, everything's organized, and then some guy goes out there and just chucks it,
Well,
off
you
the
see
space station.
one guy, he's holding it and he's just like going, okay, go
Yeah,
wait me off. And it just,
yeah.
you just see this thing spinning and it goes,
That's cool. Yeah, stays up there for a little bit. So, Mike, have you bought a printer already? Do you got one?
I was looking around on them. I have not purchased one yet. I might wait. Hannah always says I never have any, ideas for
No,
her for
I'm so
Christmas
bad.
time and things
I
like
know.
that. So
That's
maybe I
good
actually
to-
do wait, and who knows? I mean, so last thing, just wrapping up real quick here. Are things progressing fast enough that between now and let's say December, right around Christmas time, are we going to see some new models come out? Are things kind of at a slow point right now with progression on especially the hardware that you need?
Yes and yes. There's always new printers coming out every year. Sorry, someone just posted like Ender 3. It's has something else to do. But anyways, as we're going on with printers themselves, they're always changing. There's always a new one out there. There's always a new machine out there that everybody wants to get their hands on. But as it goes, sales, they're happening all the time. Like in China, November the 11th, 11/11, Singles Day. That's when printers go way down. I bought my Ender 3, which is about $200 Canadian. I was able to snag that for $150 US.
Wow.
Which worked out under $200 Canadian with shipping. And that was shipped within 3 days. I had the printer.
Yeah, the Ender 3 right now on Amazon, $229.
Yep. And honestly, if you were to pick that up right now, I'd say you would have a fun time with it. There's tons, and this is what really makes me happy. And I've been wanting to get into it, but because Canadian laws are so bad out here with having drones, you want parts for your drone?
Yeah.
You'll find you can print anything for your
That's a good point.
drone.
With my drone, I could definitely print out a lot of stuff for that.
You can't afford not to have one, Mike.
You can build the little speedy drones that people do racing with easily because you have all 3D printed parts available. Your router, your body, your propellers, your landing gear, depending on how you want to set up your landing, payload storage.
It's really going to save me money in the long term.
Oh,
right?
totally.
It's
you better pick it up now. I mean, I'm just saying, you better get a hold of one now. That way we can start a print, smoke a cigar, come back,
right?
Change the print. I mean, we got to have something going. You can't just stand outside and smoke a cigar. You got to get a 3D print job going. So
we might have to do that.
Yeah. Take a peek
next week.
Yeah, Ron, thanks for coming on. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, and the conditions were just right that you sent me those coins this last week, and I was like, we just got to get you on and talk about this thing, Ron. Thanks for taking around. Do you want to hang around? I've got some thank you stuff I've got to cover with the community. You want to stay? Okay, hang around. Hang out there, and we'll do that. But Ron, thanks for coming on and doing that. Ron, if folks wanted to chat with you, get involved in this community, what's the easiest and best ways to find you?
Best way to find me would be on let's go to YouTube Canadian Maker Project. That's where I live and breathe. You can also find me on Twitter, Canadian Maker PR, because I can't type the full word project. So people see
too many letters.
Maker PR. What?
No, it's good. It works in that case. And do you have a new podcast coming out?
I am working on a new show right now. We're not ready to launch as of yet, but it's going to be a podcast covering makers and other influencers out there in YouTube or anywhere else. And, hopefully once we're able to get our show up and going, I'll have some interviews and ready to share them with the world.
All right. Super cool. Great stuff. I think by the time I get through this bit, Wieger will have his 3D printer ordered. Yeah. So we'll come back to it. Mike, I do. So Joe is in the chat room. Tajoski, we know him kind of as in the chat room. He was down south in Mexico and in Belize, I think is what he said. And he found some and sent us back some nice. These are Gurkha Cellar Reserve 12. Right, these things have been aged for 12 years. 12
I
years.
am ready for that.
Yeah, this is pretty great, Joe. Thanks.
What do you got going on tonight after the show?
I could drive over. Actually,
Yeah, you could drive over. We could finish tonight.
Wait a minute. You have tomorrow off.
I have tomorrow off. We could finish watching the finals game. We could,
This could happen. I'm just saying.
All right.
It's very possible this could happen. So, Joe sent us a couple, and Joe, we will first of all thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I opened them at work, and I said I got the greatest friends on the planet. Some of them send me coins like this. Some of it, which is awesome, by the way. Like, this is super cool that Ron, that you took the time to make this based on Home Gadget Geeks. Some send cigars, which is super cool, and then Ed Sullivan, not the Ed Sullivan that you're thinking of, but another listener. His name is Ed. Ed said, "What kind of cigars do you smoke?" So I was telling him, he's like, "Oh, you need to get you. I'm gonna send you some, because I've been smoking a lot of the flavored stuff lately." And so he sent over a Byron Reserve 5. Those are these, Mike, right here. He sent two. I have two, one for you, one for me. And so, Ed, thanks for sending those as well. If you're into cigars and you want to send us, we're gonna kind of review these one at a time. We won't smoke them at the same time, but this will give me an excuse to go over to Wieger's. Like I said, I may go over. Are you serious?
I mean, yeah.
Because the game is on, right?
Yeah, the game's on. I think it's almost
this
halftime.
Is this game 6 or game 7?
Game 6, but okay. Toronto could win it because they're up 3-1. Okay, 3-2. Sorry, 3-2.
Very, very possible. So, Ed, thank you for sending those. We'll do that as well, and then come back and talk about it on the show. And then, Ed, Mike, I showed that acrylic. I could make a 3D printed humidor. Ron probably wouldn't. 3D printing would probably not make the best humidor. I'm assuming those things are pretty porous, right? Humidity traveling in and out of that stuff, or do you think you could seal it up pretty well?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
maybe
you have to think about that one. You know what I could use? I could listen. A guy says to another guy who just sent him a whole bunch of stuff, but is a portable, like a portable cigar carrier, so that when I'm taking it, Ed sent me actually. So just so you know, Ed sent me this nice little cigar bag as well that zips up here, and you can put the cigars inside and take them with you as you go. So Mike, that's
look at that. There you go.
I'll do tonight. But Ed was giving me some tips on the humidifier, or the keeping the right humidity. And he always says those the analog. I've lost the name of the what we call these things. I want to say humidistats, but that's not what they're called. They are hygrometers. There we go. They're hygrometers. They're not very good. The ones that kind of come stock on them. And he said, you got to buy one. So I bought an Oasis Caliber 4, $20 off Amazon, threw it in there. And sure enough, the analog one was off. Well, at least according to that one, by about 10%. So 70 was 80, and 80 was not what we wanted. We really just wanted 70. So if I'd been 70, it would have been 60, which wouldn't have been great because you want your cigars around 70. So Ed, thanks again. We're trying this out. Temperature and humidity. That's in there, relative humidity. And I think, Micah, we've got my cigars now at 68%. So we're getting pretty close. He said, Jim.
Right to perfect.
Yeah, he said, Jim, stop obsessing about the humidity. Because I kept sending him notes back and forth. Ed and I were talking. I'm like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? He's like, quit obsessing about the humidity. It'll be fine. Your cigars will be fine. So Ed, thanks for, he did say he's the one of the few who enjoys it when we talk about cigars. I moved it to the end of the show, and I'll tell Joe, you've heard me talk about this. Joe and Ed will tell him it's at the end of the show. But if you're interested in doing that, just contact me. Let me know. Appreciate that. That's super cool to be able to get those kinds of things, and appreciate it as well. Mike, how's that? That's pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love you guys are great. You listeners have been fantastic. Got some pretty great listeners, and of course we appreciate what you guys do every week. Don't forget, if you want to support the show, I will I'm thinking like I don't have a $3 plan, so my thought is maybe on Patreon $3, and I'll ship you one. It'll have an address section on there where I need your address to get it to you. We'll figure out the international shipping and all those other good things, and we will take Ron's art and get these shipped around the world to you. Kind of cool. And then the only thing I asked, maybe take a picture of where you're at, something local with you doing it, and that way I can share it with Ron. Ron, you'd probably think that's pretty cool to see these kind of show up around the world, don't you think?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, pretty cool. So get that done. And you can stay on Patreon as long as you want, or a month or whatever. I don't care. It just kind of helps keep track of things. And we'll get that set up sometime this weekend. So if you're listening to this right away, check Patreon or check theaverageguy.tv/Patreon for that $3 plan. If it's not there, it just means I haven't got it set up yet. And you can come back in the next couple days and check it. Don't forget to join us on Discord, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. We'll get that done. If you want to send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, we'll get you there as well. And we appreciate those guys who and gals who contact me all the time with questions or mostly just encouragement. I always appreciate that. Always good to hear from you. Don't forget the averageguy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Of course, you know that's Christian. You can get more information. Plans start as little as $10, and that guy is rocking. I haven't had a downtime in forever. Oh, I just jinxed it. Sorry, Christian. Check it out, maplegrovepartners.com. We are here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. You're like, wait a minute, Jim, you didn't talk about HelloFresh. I didn't, and I'm not gonna this time. Sammy is talking about coming back on. She has figured out a whole bunch of kitchen gadgets that she's using with HelloFresh tonight. So she had me convinced to do the segment, and then not tonight, but another night. And tonight she was like, I don't know, Dad. So I'm kind of hoping, I don't know, if you want to hear Sammy come on and talk about some of the gadgets she uses, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. But we appreciate you guys listening. We'll stay around for a smidgen of post-show. I'm kind of contemplating putting my shoes back on and heading out to see Wieger, so we may not be around too much longer. John Biggs wanted me to chat a little bit about some of the crypto stuff. We may or may not do that, but thanks for coming out tonight. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.